Alright, so we're going to do 3.2 extension, which is about factoring. Alright, so factoring is undistributing. So on the last couple, we've been distributing where we take that 6 times our x, which is 6x, and then we take that 6 times that 3, which would be plus 18, and this would be my answer. Okay, now we're going to go backwards. So the question's going to be like number 1. This is what they're going to give you, and they want you to get it back into this form. Okay, so we're going to talk about going backwards rather than forward. So lately you've been just multiplying that 6 through. Now we're going to go ahead and factor that 6 out. So let's go ahead and try a couple examples. So factor the expression using the GCF. The GCF is the biggest thing that goes into either one of those. So 7 is prime on number 1, so I know 7 goes into 7, and 7 goes into 28. So what you're doing is you're just going to divide. So we're going to take that 7, and I'm going to put this in the box, and I'm going to divide by that 7, okay? So 7 divided by 7 is 1. I bring up that plus, okay? I bring that plus up. 28 divided by 7 is 4. And then you're not done because you have to put parentheses through and put the 7, bring this 7 up. And so my answer would be 7 parentheses 1 plus 4. To check your answer is very simple. You just distribute it. So 7 times 1 gives you 7. 7 times a positive 4 is 28. So is that what I originally had? Yep. So my answer is 7 and parentheses 1 plus 4 and parentheses. Alright, so let's go ahead and try another one. So the greatest common factor between 25 and 50. If you don't see it, well, I know 5 goes into both of them. Yeah, but I think there's something bigger. I'll tell you it's 25. So the biggest thing is when you're doing this, you have to get the greatest common factor. So 25 is my greatest common factor, so I'm going to take and divide that 25 out. 25 plus 50. So 25 divided by 25 is 1. Bring up my sign, that plus, that 50 divided by 25, 25 goes into 52 times. And I'm not done because I have to put parentheses and then bring up that 25. And that is my answer right there, 25, parentheses 1 plus 2. Okay, you can go ahead and check if you want. 25 times 1 is 25, plus 25 times 2, which is 50. And that is what we originally had. Okay? Alright, so my greatest common factor here is 7. 7 goes into both of those, so I'm going to take out a 7. So 7b minus 7. 7 divided by 7 is 1, and I still have that b, 1b. Okay, a negative, bring it up. 7 divided by 7 is 1, right? 1, so then I'm not done because I need to put parentheses and put that 7 up there, and we are done. Okay, technically you don't need this one here. It could just be b minus 1 in the parentheses, but that would be your answer. Alright, let's go ahead and try another one. What goes into 8 and into 16? Well, 2 does, 4 does, 8 does. 8's my biggest number, so I'm going to factor out my 8. 8a minus 16. 8a divided by 8, so 8 divided by 8 is 1, and you get that a still there. Bring up the minus. 16 divided by 8 is 2. And then we have that 8 here. Okay? And that would be your answer. You can distribute it and check that too. Okay? So 8 and 12. I know 2 goes into both of them. I know 4 goes into both of them, which 4 is the biggest one, so we're going to divide out a 4. Okay? 8x divided by 4 is 2x. Bring up the plus. 12 divided by 4 is 3. Parentheses, bring up that 4. Do not forget the parentheses, bring up the 4 because you will be subtracted points if you do. Alright, 12y plus 24t. What is my biggest thing that goes in there? I know 3 goes into both of them, 4 goes into both of them, 6 goes into both of them. 12 also goes into both of them. So my greatest common factor is 12. 12y divided by 12 is just 1y. Bring up the sign. 24 divided by 12 is 2. You have that t, parentheses, and then bring out that 12 to the front. And that would be your answer right there. Okay, moving on. Number 7. What's my greatest common factor between 10 and 50? It would be 10w plus 50z. 10w divided by 10 is just 1w, so just w. Bring up the plus sign, 50 divided by 10 is 5, and then you still have that z, parentheses, 10, and that would be my answer. You can go ahead and distribute and check it. Okay, what goes into 10v plus 12u? What goes into each one? So my greatest common factor between 10 and 12 is 2. So I take out a 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5, and I still have that v. Bring up the sign. 12 divided by u is 6. And we parentheses it, and we put that 2 out front. And that is my answer there. Okay, what goes into 9 and into 15? We should know is 3 is the greatest common factor. So we get 3 out of there. 9a divided by 3 is 3a. Bring up the sign. 15 divided by 3 is 5b. Parentheses, and then you have that 3 out front, and this would be your complete answer. Alright, moving right along. Now it says factor out the coefficient of the variable. The coefficient you have to remember is the number in front of that variable. So right in front of that variable is 1/2, so I am taking out that coefficient. So I'm taking that 1/2 out. Okay, so be careful. The biggest thing that helps you, okay, when you're factoring out the coefficient, in order to factor that out, you should know that 1/2 divided by 1/2 is just going to give you that a. So you should just be able to get an a or the variable by itself when you are factoring out the coefficient, okay? And then bring up that minus sign. 1/2 divided by 1/2 is 1. If you need to, you could write it out. 1/2 divided by 1/2. You skip, flip it, and you multiply it. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 over 1 is just 1. And then you bring up that, you put parentheses, and you bring up that coefficient. And that would be your answer. Moving on, so 1/4 is above the d, in front of the d, so the coefficient is 1/4, so I'm going to factor that out. 1/4 d minus 3/4. Okay, you shouldn't even have to divide. 1/4 divided by 1/4 is just going to give you d. Bring up the sign, minus, so then I'm going to do 3/4 divided by 1/4. Okay, skip, flip, right, multiply, so this becomes 4 ones. This becomes multiply. Okay, I'm going to real quick reduce this because it'll be a little less. So 4 and 4, that becomes 1. That becomes 1 because 4 goes into both of those. And then we multiply across. 3 times 1 is 3. 1 times 1 is 1. So I get 3. And then I put parentheses and I keep that 1/4 out there. And that would be my answer. 1/4 d minus 3. Parentheses d minus 3. If you want, you can go ahead and check that. You should get the same exact answer. Alright, on this problem, my number in front of the variable is 5, 6, so I'm factoring out 5, 6. Okay, right away you should understand that this should just become s because anything divided by itself is just 1, and then you have that s there. Okay, then we're going to do 2/3 divided by 5, 6, which we're just going to skip, and then we're going to flip it, so this becomes 6/5, and we're going to multiply it. And let's go ahead and reduce this. So what goes into 3 and 6? Yep, 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. And multiply. 2 times 2 is 4. 1 times 5 is 5. And so I get 4/5 here. And parentheses, bring up that 5, 6 for your final answer. Moving on. So now factor out the coefficient of the variable. We're doing the same exact thing. So go ahead and try this one on your own. Pause the video, and then I'll real quick step through it with you. Alright, so now we're ready. So 3/10 is my coefficient, right? That's the thing that's in front. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and divide it. 3/10, so this becomes y. Bring up the sign. 2/5 divided by 3/10, which is skip, flip, multiply. So this becomes 1, this becomes 2, and we have 4/3. So I'm going to leave that improper just to make it easier on us, 4/3, and then 3/10 up here. If you made that proper, okay, that 4/3, it would become, instead of 4/3, it would be 1 1/3, which is fine too if you wrote it like that. This is probably the better way of writing it. Okay, alright, moving on. Pause the video, try number 14 for me. Alright, so 1.1 is my coefficient, so I'm going to go ahead and take out 1.1 divided by 1.1. That becomes x plus 9.9 divided by 1.1 is 9, and then we put our parentheses and we move that 1.1 up. If we wanted to, we could check this and multiply it on through, make my rainbows, okay? All right, number 15, my coefficient is 3.4. It's in front of that C, so 3.4, and then 3.4C plus 10.2. 3.4C divided by 3.4 is just C. Bring up that plus, then we do 10.2 divided by 3.4, which we get positive 3. And then we bring up that 3.4 and we get that answer right there. Alright, so now it's giving you something exact to factor out. So it says factor -2 out of this. So if I'm factoring out -2, I'm in -2, I'm dividing that out, okay? So since it's a negative, we have to be careful. So we're taking a -2 divided by, or a -6 divided by a -2. So same signs, it becomes a positive. 6 divided by 2 is 3, and you still have that x, okay? Then we do the positive 10. So 10 positive divided by -2, opposite signs, it's a negative, right? And then 10 divided by 2 is 5. Then we put parentheses, and we put that -2 there, okay? It is not a -3, it is a positive 3, but we don't usually put that positive there. And then let's go ahead and check and just make sure we did this right, just because the negative kind of throws us off. -2 times 3x is -6x. Negative times positive is a negative. And then -2 times -5. Negative times negative is positive. And then 2 times 5 is 10. So yes, we did that one correctly. Alright, moving on. Same thing. So -1/3, we're factoring that out. That means we're dividing that out. Okay? And let's go ahead and do this. So -1/3 divided by a positive 1/3. So a positive divided by a negative is a negative, and 1/3 divided by 1/3 just gives you 1. So you get that y, and then we do -3/2 divided by -1/3. So negative divided by a negative becomes a positive, and then 3/2 we skip, we flip it, so this becomes 3 ones, and we multiply it, so this becomes 9/2. Which is the same thing as 4.5 or 4.5. We parentheses, and then we do -1/3. If we wanted to, we could go ahead and multiply this through, and you should get the same exact answer. Alright, a square window has a perimeter of 8x plus 12 feet. Write an expression that it represents the side lengths of the window in feet. So a perimeter of a square, that means all the sides are the same, correct? If the perimeter is 8x plus 12, to get the perimeter, I'd have to do s plus s plus s plus s. So I have to take all those together, has to equal 8x plus 12, but I want to find one side. So in order to find one side, I have to divide by how many sides there are, which is 4. So I'm going to do 8x divided by 4, which is 2x, plus 12 divided by 4, which is 3. So one side in feet is 2x plus 3 feet. So one side is just 2x plus 3 feet. Alright, that is factoring. Thank you.